So first off, let's go for your friend and mine and everybody else's, Piers Morgan.
Likes vegan food apart from die-hard vegans. I never meet a healthy-looking vegan, and I never meet one who doesn't yap on and on and on about being a vegan. I like steak, but I don't talk about it 24/7.
I feel for the animals that are forced into gas chambers, who have their lives taken from them. Amazing plant-based options and alternatives that can give you that same taste, satisfaction, pleasure.
No, that's the thing. You see, it doesn't taste as good, Tommy, does it?
If vegan and plant-based food was so great, they wouldn't go out of their way to try to make it taste like actual meat. So I think that proves the point. I don't believe in cruelty to animals as far as shoving chickens in cages or having animals live on feedlots their entire lives. So there's a solution to this. We can go back to American or maybe UK base for you guys farmers and ranchers that raise their livestock in a humane way. And if you're able to, instead of buying the stuff in the grocery store, go and find somebody that has a ranch or a farm and get your meat from that source.
Vegans are not against farmers. We're against animal cruelty. And at the end of the day, these animals still end up at the slaughterhouse with their throat slit. And so that's really where the problem lies. We make plant-based options taste like meat because we didn't give up meat because we didn't like the taste. We gave it up because we didn't want to see animals suffer.
Listen, I hear you. I don't like a lot of the animal cruelty that goes with the meat business, and that can certainly be worked on. But boy, I love eating meat, and no vegan's ever going to change my mind.
Yeah, a typical kind of mainstream opinion. All three of them talked about cruelty. Morgan did, the vegan did, and the non-vegan did.
The vegan woman. There was one. The best thing she talked about really was the slaughter, by saying, well, look, they're all of them go to the slaughterhouse, basically. And that was really the one good point she made. And I think the problem is in talking about the cruelty, because you're not dealing there with a fundamental wrong. The fundamental wrong really is that these animals are exploited and these animals are killed, no matter how they're kept. No matter what slaughter methods are used, at the end of the day, humans are exploiting those animals, humans are killing those animals, and we don't need to do that. We can live perfectly well without doing that. And therefore, because we can live without doing that, it must be wrong to do it. And that's a really, really simple argument for veganism, or at least for adopting a vegan-friendly diet, that I don't ever see used. People talk about cruelty all the time. That very simple, there is no answer to that argument. If we don't need to do it, we have the choice not to do it, then it must be wrong to do it. That's end of argument. But that I don't see that. I don't see representatives of vegan organizations talking like that.
No, but the point is, the interesting point about that is everybody was agreed that everybody didn't want the cruelty part.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so the entire conversation was based within the welfare paradigm of cruelty. And so everybody can go along with that. The person who was talking about the ranching, she could go along with that. The vegans said it, and Piers Morgan said it. And of course, Piers Morgan came out with the kind of classic mainstream cultural speciesist thing, which is, well, I'm against the cruelty, but I love my meat, right? And that's because what the subtext of that is that you can get flesh without cruelty. And that's the promise of animal welfare. So the conversation was within the welfare paradigm, even though there's a good chance that when the vegan said the word cruelty, she meant something different than the other two meant it.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. But you can't get your meat without killing. You can't get your meat without exploitation. And so that is what vegan spokespersons should focus on.
There's 3 clips here. I think they're all animal rising.
You said that you want to disrupt the Grand National at Aintree later on today. So tell us what your plan is. What is it that you're trying to do?
Well, the reason we're here today is first and foremost for these horses. We are a group of animal lovers, as I'm sure most people are here today. But unfortunately, with events like the Grand National and when we exploit animals in general for food, for entertainment, we are putting them directly in harm's way. So we are here today to prevent this from happening. This is also part of a much bigger campaign that is happening this summer, not just centered around horse racing, but so that we can have this really important national conversation about our treatment of animals.
Alex Lockwood is from Animal Rising, joins us in the studio. Alex, what exactly is going to happen this weekend?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us on. I think in this country, we're rightly proud of being animal lovers. We want to go there and stop the harm. What we're asking people to do is come and join us at 9:30, from 9:30 in the morning outside the gates.
Are you going to try and stop the most famous race in the world? Is that your plan?
One horse dies every 2 or 3 days in racing in the UK. 50% of the horses who end up in UK slaughterhouses have racing passports. You know, it does harm the animals, and we're against that. So yes, we will try to disrupt the race.
But these horses are bred for racing. So if they weren't bred for racing, then the argument is they wouldn't be born at all. Surely it's better to be bred for horse racing and to be cared for as they are than not being born at all.
Yeah, I mean, that is the definition of breeding, forcing animals into life for profit. It's very similar to the food system. One of the real tragedies, isn't it, that people who do love horses and love the racing, the only way to actually get close to these wonderful creatures is to actually have them bred for profit.
The Grand National's coming up.
Excellent.
And some organisation called Animal Rising says they want to disrupt it. Joining us from Animal Rising is their spokesperson, Ben Newman, as well as horse consultant Dean Stansell. Now, Ben, first to you. Come on, this is one of the great sporting events in British cultural life. How are you going to disrupt it, and why are you going to disrupt it?
Yeah, so horse racing is wrong, and we can do so much better than using animals for fun or food.
Dean Stansell, Ben says horse racing is wrong and cruel. Is he right?
He is, Ben. I agree totally with Ben. 59 horses have been killed at the Grand National meeting since the year 2000. That's 59 horses' lives lost.
Yeah, so they obviously didn't do their research too well.
Dean Stansell works for Animal Aid. He's their horse racing expert.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they really didn't do it then.
No.
Yeah, I think Alex Lockwood was the best of those three. I do despair about the animal lover bit, though.
The animal lover bit, yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's that's something I kind of really dislike. The use of that, like this kind of, pretense that, this nation is one of animal lovers. I dislike that intensely. The main thing that stood out for me from those three interviews, and really it's a factor of everything that Animal Rising say or actually fail to say, is they don't mention what ordinary people can do about the situation, right? Because the reason we have a horse racing industry is because ordinary people attend and bet on horse racing. Right? There's no message in any of those interviews to ordinary people to say ordinary people can do something about this. Ordinary people can do something about this slaughter of horses by the racing industry by not betting on or not attending horse racing. But they didn't say that. They didn't really say the most important thing that they should have said.
Well, they did kind of say you can come along to our demo, though, didn't they?
Yeah, but that's not the same, is it? That's not the same. And going along to a demo isn't the same as, people going in the bookies or going online and betting on horse racing, where a percentage of that money goes to support the industry, or even attending a horse race where obviously even more money goes to support the industry, and that's, that's, to me, that's hugely problematic. I think it's really important to inform the public about what they themselves can do about these things. They have the power themselves to make a difference.
Two clips to go. So one of them is Earthling Ed, and one of them is Joey Carstrong. So this is where it's really interesting because they both got the reputation of being incredibly good operators in the media, right? But even then, they're operating within the welfare paradigm, and they're not challenging the welfare paradigm. They're not actually saying, well, hang on a minute, that's not our bag or anything. They're going along with it, which is a real kind of shame and a shock to me.
Hi, well, welcome. We've got Ed here, who's a vegan, and you're a butcher. So, oh, look at that. Look at that. That's what we want more of. Are you both available to go to Brussels next week? Do you feel demonised as a butcher? Because, you know, you have high animal welfare standards, don't you?
I think this is about educating about production systems and that, and I think a lot of the production systems all get lumped together. And as a small retail butcher who has direct contact with the farms, I feel that I can offer my customers the traceability, the welfare, and also how those animals are looked after and fed.
Can you tell me how they're looked after and fed?
Yes, I can tell you how they're looked after and fed. We actually go and visit the farms. We actually have an abattoir as well.
And how are they killed in the abattoir?
So they're killed in the abattoir. This is not a debate on killing methods, or this is a debate on environmentalism.
But can you tell me how they are killed in the abattoir?
Well, they're electrocuted, so they're knocked out cold, and then they...
But it doesn't always work, though, does it?
It does work.
It doesn't always work, though, does it?
We have vets there watching everything. We're even on CCTV now, all the time. So there's never been higher welfare standards in this country than there are at the moment, and we're wanting to defend those standards, especially with regard to Brexit and that as well.
Why are you doing So there you are. So it starts in the welfare paradigm. It was Nick. What's his name? Nick. Somebody. I can't remember his name now. But the guy who presented it. He starts with high welfare. Then the butcher guy starts talking about welfare. Ed doesn't challenge any of that, and then he mentions that he's got an abattoir, and so Ed goes, okay, how are they killed? Well, they're knocked out cold, and then he starts talking about the percentage of stunning.
No need to ask that question. No need to ask how they're killed. The fact is that they are killed. The lives of those animals are still being taken when we don't need to consume animal products. So therefore, it must be wrong. It must be wrong that those animals are exploited and killed. And it can't be right for anyone to be involved in that, including that butcher. That's all you have to say. You don't have to go into how they're killed. Why are you exploiting and why are you killing those animals when we don't need to do that, when we can all live perfectly well without doing that? Why are you doing it? It can't be right, can it? Don't get into talking about, slaughtering methods and whether it's the stunning works. That's irrelevant to the fundamental wrong. I'm sure Ed is opposed to other animals being slaughtered for food, and I'm sure he's opposed to that. I'm sure he's opposed to the exploitation and slaughter of other animals, no matter what conditions they're kept in, and no matter what methods are used to slaughter them. I'm sure that's the case, but it's just that's not. But somehow vegans have got in the habit of talking about cruelty, of talking about treatment, of talking about conditions, of talking about slaughter methods, instead of talking about the fundamental wrong of exploitation and the fact that those animals are killed in the first place. Whatever methods are used. For some reason, vegans, for the most part, have got a way are focusing on cruelty instead of focusing on exploitation and killing, because these animals are always killed. I mean, we're not going to be able to consume animal products unless the animals are killed. But the focus is wrong, and I think that Ed is maybe following on from or just carrying on with the general trends within the movement to talk about cruelty all the time.
So the last one is Joey Carlson.
Everything in moderation, though. It doesn't have to be healthier. It just in the same way you've got fast food options with meat, you can have fast food options.
Hang on, let's just... Yeah, but we're trying to abolish the worst abuse and cruelty to animals on earth.
So that's just pure animal welfareism. The idea that we're about to abolish the worst abuses and cruelty to other animals. This is just pure down the line welfareism. Okay, so that's the same kind of problem. That, I mean, if people are talking welfare and you're not a welfarist, you point it out that, well, that's not your bag, this is it. Give them something to think about. Whereas you don't just fall in line and talk welfare with them.
No,
because that's not what you want to talk about.
Absolutely. I'd immediately say that, the fundamental wrong isn't to do with the conditions the animals are kept on. Yes, very, very often they are kept in appalling conditions, and very, very often these animals do suffer considerably during the slaughtering process. But that's not the fundamental wrong. The fundamental wrong that those animals are actually exploited, so used in the first place by humans and killed. That's the fundamental wrong. And they can't. You see, the problem is that if you accuse these people that use animals of cruelty, they'll deny it, and they'll put forward arguments as to why they're not cruel. If you accuse them of being involved in the fundamental wrong, they can't argue against that, because they are exploiting other animals. They are sending other animals to the slaughterhouse. They can't deny that. There's no need to discuss cruelty at all, because you've already brought up the fundamental reason why it's wrong.
Yeah, the danger really is the fact that I think that it's almost like those two words, cruelty. Well, three now really. You've got cruelty, abuse, be an animal lover, and also my favourite one, have mercy. Now those are, especially cruelty and abuse, those are the two dominant words. And sometimes if you go on a place like Instagram, go onto TikTok, that's the only word you'll see. It's as though for the modern day vegan, there's a direct line between the word cruelty and veganism. Don't be cruel means go vegan, whereas it's never meant that culturally.
No, and it just leads you into constant debate with people claiming that they're not cruel.
And then the vegan says, yes, you are. Right. And so, no, I'm not.
And then, yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You say, well, you send those animals to the slaughterhouse, don't you? Well, yes, I do. You go then. End of argument, And yet that it's massively overcomplicated. The argument for veganism is hugely simple. And it's overcomplicated when all this cruelty stuff gets brought into it.